for spending a little time with us today. Let's start it out with Nathan Barrett from Cleveland.com. Nathan, go ahead.
Ryan, I guess where would you assess the fluency in the offense for all three of these quarterbacks, and what happens between now and the, I guess, late summer when you get to sort of reinstate more formal practices again? What are they tasked with doing between now and then?
Yeah, they're tasked with being obsessed with learning the offense, and a lot goes with that. They got to get in the weight room with Mick. They got to get stronger. They got to get faster. They got to get quicker. You know, we grade our guys in there, and we have a champions meeting right before the beginning of preseason camp. And if you're a gold, then that means that you're one of the top performers in the weight room. You know, that's the first thing they got to do. But then it's off the field is studying film, watching film, spending time in the Woody, and just, wearing out the XO system. And that's what they got to do. The fluency of the offense, I mean, they're getting there, but they got a long way to go. It was very, very basic. We worked on fundamentals and techniques. And so, like I said, we're playing catch up here. We obviously would love to have somebody that's in year 2 or 3 here. We don't have that luxury. So we got some young guys, and they got work to do. And so it's a race, like I said the other day, to make up for time that we don't have. That's just the truth of it. And we'd love to be practicing all summer. We'd love to be practicing right now. We can't do that. So the only way to do that is to watch film and have these guys do work on their own, and try to maybe give them some worksheets and different things to let them work on their own and help them guide them a little bit. But at the end of the day, they have to be self-motivated.
Okay, we'll go next to Dan Hope from 11 Warriors.
Hey, Ryan, do you feel like there's a timeline going into August where you feel like maybe I need to narrow the competition down to 2 quarterbacks, or maybe I need to make the decision on who our starter is going to be so that that guy can get enough reps before that season opener?
I think the idea is to get the guys ready. I think one of the things just across the board, the focus is who's the starter. Okay, well, you can be the starter, but if you're not ready to go, that's not going to last very long. So the race is to get ready to play. So if we feel like someone's taken that much of a step ahead and they're ready to play against Minnesota in that first week, then we'll name the starter at that point. If it's not until the week before, it's not going to be until the week before. It would be ideal to be able to name somebody a little bit sooner than that. So like you said, they can get the majority of the reps. But until someone really puts themselves out in front of the other two, we'll just keep going. And it's a long year. It's a long process. And the focus for these guys, again, just has to be, how do I get developed faster? And how do I get the most ready to play in this season faster? Not trying to win the job, because I think maybe sometimes it's like, that's how do I compare myself to the guy next to me? It's not about that. It's how do I get myself ready? Because we have to go win some really hard games this season.
Next up, Patrick Murphy, 247.
Ryan, I have a kind of off-the-wall question. We've heard for several years now about players and athletes using social media as it's gotten bigger to kind of speak their minds and maybe create their own narrative. Recently, and by that I mean within like the last year, you've seemed to use that on your own, whether it was talking about wearing masks and being safe, supporting the team in their fight to play, coming out the other day and talking about Justin's health. I'm just curious at what point you realize social media could be a tool for you and how you decide when you want to use that. Because I know it's not, all the time that you put messages like that out.
No, I think it's a really good question. And I think it's something that, I have to continually do a better job of, and we do, talking to our players about the benefits and the risks surrounding social media. And certainly when something doesn't go well, social media can be toxic, and it can really get to these guys. And it has gotten to a lot of our players. And you feel like the world's caving in. The truth is, if there's 50 people saying crazy things about you on the internet, if you look at 50 people in the horseshoe, it's like this little small section up in the left-hand corner over there. It's not as many as you think, but you have to have some perspective there. The minute you go onto social media, you're at risk. You're at risk to all the people who make comments and do different things. And so understanding that before you step into that world is important. I think it is very powerful to make or to use social media to communicate, to make statements, to help support our players. And so I'll use it in those situations. I try not to overdo it though. But I know it does have power, and it certainly has, its place.
All righty, we'll go next to Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop.
Ryan, Ohio State has generally had the best offense in the Big Ten over the last decade, certainly since you've been there. How confident are you that that will continue in 2021?
We don't have a choice. I tell the guys all the time, like, we have to. So, whatever that means. And that's the desperation that we have to wake up with every day as coaching staff, as players. I tell the guys all the time, I wake up scared every day, that people want what we have. And so the expectation's been set. We know that. It was the same expectation when I was fortunate enough to be the head coach a couple of years ago, and the expectation hasn't changed, and it won't in 20 years here at Ohio State. So we're expected to be the best, and with that comes great responsibility. And so we'll just wake up every day and just grind. And again, I keep using the word obsessed. I mean, our players have to become obsessed with maximizing themselves in the weight room, watching film, and getting themselves prepared to play against Minnesota.
Hey, next up, Jeremy Birmingham, Leonard Monroe.
Hey, Ryan, I know that obviously the 180-mile radius around Columbus is always the most important focus on the recruiting trail. But when you guys look ahead and see one area or one region of the country that has like a really centralized group of talent in a class that's down the road, how does that change how you approach the entire class? Or do you guys reallocate resources or change things up at all when you see like Florida having a huge year down the road? And how does that change things for you?
I don't know if it changes things other than, like you said, we try to recruit as many guys as we can in our footprint here, the Midwest, certainly the state of Ohio. And then we go from there. We're fortunate enough to be able to recruit from coast to coast. And when you look at our roster, you see that. And we're looking for guys who have like-minded philosophies. They want to be great. They want to compete. They want to come in here and be part of a family, but also compete for a national championship. So we're looking for that right culture fit. But in terms of philosophically in recruiting, we're very much position specific. And because of the way things have been the last year and a half, it's been a lot more efficient for us to be position specific. When you're on the road traveling and you go down to see a defensive back in Florida, now you need to go recruit the area a little bit and see some of the coaches and kind of cultivate the area. When you're not traveling, it's a lot easier and more efficient to just do more position recruiting, because in the end, these players want to know who they're being coached by. And the position coach, the strength coach, and the head coach all have to be involved in that. So that's kind of what we've been into. As we start to get back on the road recruiting, then we'll start to really focus in a little bit more on our recruiting areas to be more efficient with our time.
Let's go next to Bill Rabino. It's Columbus Dispatch.
All right, Ryan. Other than quarterbacks, probably the biggest question your team is the back seven on defense. What do you see from your linebackers and DBs and what do you see in the spring? How concerned are you about the injuries and the lack of how that will affect you going forward? And how comfortable are you going to be in the fall, you think, with the back seven?
I mean, I'm very encouraged with what we did this spring on defense in general. I think we have some really good young talent back there. And, the forecast is that we're going to get everybody back here. So we did have some surgeries, different things. And so that was frustrating that these guys weren't able to get as many reps in the spring as you would like. But the good news is the cavalry's coming on this thing, and we're going to have really great depth back there. When you look at our numbers and where we're projected to go into preseason camp, I'm fired up about that. But like you said, summer's going to be really, really important. Preseason is going to be really, really important. We do have some guys who have had some reps back there with Seven and Cam. Those guys have been in the program for a while. Marcus Williamson. But we also have some young guys, some freshmen that are coming in. But I was encouraged by what I saw back there. I thought that some of the young guys really stepped up, and they used these 15 practices to get better. So we're going to be much deeper in the secondary than we've been. We're also going to be younger. So there's a give and take there, but I think the future is very, very bright. And I'm really happy with where our recruiting is at and where our talent level is back there.
All right, we'll go next to Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
Hey, Ryan, there's some, these stats, but I saw the stats. Justin and his time at Ohio State seemed to, you used him to throw down the field a lot. He threw maybe fewer screens or RPOs, shorter stuff than some of the other top quarterbacks than Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones. We know when you got here, a lot of mesh routes with JT. Dwayne got the ball out of his hands quickly. With where your quarterbacks are now, would you imagine in this season you'll emphasize the short passing game a little bit more, get it out of their hands with the young quarterback? Or do you want to be an offense that throws the ball down the field a lot, and that what we saw with Justin is more indicative of where this offense is now?
Again, another great question. I think we're still not there yet with these guys, figuring out where we want to spend our time in terms of emphasizing. Our offense is our offense. It hasn't changed, when JT was the quarterback, when Dwayne was the quarterback, when Justin was the quarterback. But to your point, what do we want to emphasize? The plays really haven't changed. But if you have 100 plays in a game or 80 plays in a game, when do you want to, emphasize based on their strengths? 3 different quarterbacks, very similar, but I think all 3 have different strengths and weaknesses. And so as we go into a game, we're certainly going to do the things that they, do best. And I don't think I have the answer to that yet. I think some of them do get the ball out of their hand quickly, and that's good. I think they do have good accuracy underneath. But I also think that they do a decent job down the field as well. So in a perfect world, you'd like to do a little bit of both. And if that's what we do, that's what we do. But again, the strength of college football coaching is to find out what they do really, really well and emphasize that. We're still not there yet, though.
All righty, we'll go next to Whitney Harding. Whitney, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, it feels like every offseason from college football, there's the question of, is overtime going to change? And it finally did. What do you think about the new overtime rules and the other rules that have been brought up as far as potential changes to offseason practice and things like that?
Yeah, I think the overtime rule makes sense when you see some of these games. I know some of the crazy games have gone 6 and 7 overtimes, and that's not good for the players. So I get it. It's not ideal, but I think it makes sense for player safety. And yeah, the stuff that goes on in the summer, I just think we need to really talk that and think that through and make sure we're not rushing into a decision on that. Because we've been doing things a certain way for a long time, and I don't think we want to change just to change. But certainly, I think it's worth a conversation.
Okay, let's go next to Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Ryan, is there something that you didn't get accomplished in spring that you thought you would or you wanted to?
No, not really. I think that the fundamentals and techniques were just the huge emphasis point. There were still some guys who got injured, like I think Bill was talking about in the back end, that I wish those guys got more reps across the board. But, for the most part, we got what we wanted accomplished in the spring. And I would say the most got done in that 9 to 13 practice right there when things got hard. And, some guys, couldn't sustain. They struggled. And other guys did. They worked their way through practice. And that, we found out a lot about the team. And that was really, really well done. So still got work to do, but overall, I think everything we wanted to get done, we got done.
Thanks.
Let's go next to Jared Smalley, WCMH.
Ryan, you had, as mentioned a moment ago, you issued a social media statement about Justin a couple of days ago, and I wanted to follow up on that about working with him through that process, about managing his health over the past couple of years. Obviously, it wasn't public knowledge of what he was dealing with. How you all worked with him on that, what you encountered, maybe some challenges that you encountered, you had to work through in figuring out how to make sure he was healthy, let alone able to play football.
I think one of, or a couple of the strengths of Justin, if you ask me, my favorite things about Justin, one, I would say is his work ethic, the way he comes and grinds every single day. And then two, the way he takes care of his body and his health. He went to a vegan diet. He takes all that stuff very, very seriously. And, we never had any issue with his health. I mean, he was reliable, never missed a game. The only snaps he missed was after taking a shot in his knee, and then the shot he took in the Clemson game. He was always a pro about his body and his health. So never really had to worry about that. Even, when he took those shots and had to come back from those games and then play the next week as well. So was a pro, was durable, was reliable, and never had to worry about any of that stuff with Justin.
All right, let's go next to Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports.
Hey, Ryan, kind of dovetailing off that, in a relatively short amount of time, you've been on both sides of the draft. You've had to evaluate players and then have them evaluated. Specifically, what, on the college side, what goes through your mind when you see these guys scrutinized like Justin? You know their character, you know how they can play, but it's almost they're built up to a point, to tear them down by all the pundits.
Yeah, I get frustrated. I feel like there's a lot of people in the draft, and some guys get a pass and some guys don't. And certainly people have taken shots at Justin. Though when I think about being the quarterback at Ohio State, when I talk to families and their recruits, we say it's like being the shortstop of the New York Yankees. With that comes great scrutiny. There's pluses and there's minuses to everything. And I think one thing too that Justin did an unbelievable job of is handle that when he was here. He kind of isolated himself. He didn't have a lot of people get to him. It was kind of him and his dog in his apartment a lot. And he did a great job of handling what comes with being the quarterback at Ohio State. And along the lines, you're going to get different scrutiny along the way. And that's part of, I guess, America, and they build you up and they try to rip you down. And there's vulnerability and there's exposure there. But the one thing about Justin, he never gets rattled at all. I mean, it just actually fuels his fire a little bit, which I think is a good thing. And now when you look at some of the more successful quarterbacks in the NFL, they've been through adversity. And this is just kind of one more level of adversity he's had to go through. It's just people taking shots at things that I think are his strengths. So it's been a unique. And yeah, to your point, I've been a little frustrated to hear some of the things that have been said, but he stays above the fray. And I know he's just fired up about getting back to football.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, we'll do about two more for Coach Day. Let's go to Bill Landis from The Athletic. Bill.
Hey, Ryan. When we come off a season in which you get the national championship and the game goes the way that yours did, I think a lot of folks might anticipate sort of macro level sort of sweeping changes to address that. But it seems like maybe your focus is more, micro, smaller than that. How did the way that game went and maybe how you ultimately assess where you guys are relative to being able to win that game? Because I know that's the goal. How did that kind of inform the way you wanted to go about this winter and spring?
Well, I think first off, this year was a little bit of an anomaly. And I think when you look at what we went through with really no preseason in the month of September, we weren't having a season. So some guys were in California, some guys were in Florida, some guys weren't working out, some guys were. The season was over. And then we find out that there might be a season. We kind of get everybody back together, and then we get a few weeks to get ready for the season. That happened. Then during the season, well, we didn't have games. So we only had 6 games leading up to the Big Ten championship game. And then all that being said, coming back and having to play a really good Clemson team and to play the way we did was amazing. And I don't really know to this day how we got that done because we weren't really prepared to play in the postseason the way that we would like to normally. And then coming off of that game, Justin's got that injury. We had one padded practice leading up to the game. Some days, leading up to that game, we weren't allowed to practice because we had to meet virtually because we had an outbreak of COVID on the team. Yet we still were going to play in the game against an opponent that really hadn't broke stride all year. Very, very difficult situation, and never made excuses. We were going to play in the game. I would love to have played the game under different circumstances in a different moment, but I chalked that up to COVID, and it's a learning experience. And so I'm very, very proud of what we accomplished this year. And to make changes because of that would be foolish, because the things that were accomplished this year were amazing. Some of the best coaching that I've seen and some of the best leadership that I've seen in my coaching career. So I look at the other way. I think guys need to be committed for what they did, because this was really, really hard. And unless you were really in it, you don't get it. And I'm not trying to be over dramatic, but it was real. And Joe will be talking about this for 20 years down the road. So I'm proud of what we did. Certainly every year you want to make adjustments, and you got to get back to that game. We got to win that game. That's part of our job here at Ohio State. That's the expectation. We know that. We're not going to run from it. So we're always going to make adjustments year in and year out. But I just think that things that were done this year were awesome, and we're going to keep building on as we move forward.
All righty, let's go next to Tim May, Letterman Road.
Thanks, Mike. Real quick, that was funny coming off of that speech there, but I did want to ask you about this, Ryan. TreVeyon Henderson, last time you saw him run the ball, he was a junior in high school. And I'm just wondering specifically about him and the running backs, but specifically about him. What did you see that just stood out about him through the spring and through the spring game that tells you he can contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to talk too much about the freshmen because there's a lot of sophomores and juniors and seniors that have made great strides. But I know that some of the new guys we like to find out about. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Trey, really did a good job after not playing football for a long time. He's still learning and figuring it out, similar to the way JK didn't really play his senior year.
Yeah.
He had to kind of come in and learn. So every time he got out there, he was kind of getting more and more strong and figuring things out. But I think he has the respect of his teammates because of his approach, the way he lives his life off the field, his seriousness about the game. So excited to see where this summer heads as we head into August.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
All righty, and last question for Coach. We'll go to Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Oh, Rob, you're on mute, I think, bud.
How's that?
Yep, got you now.
You and Justin are very close. Was there discussions about keeping his epilepsy private? And now that it's leaked, have you two been able to talk to maybe turn him into a spokesperson to kind of take a potential negative, turn it into a positive, or where does that stand in just your discussions in his situation?
Yeah, we didn't have a whole bunch of conversations about it. Justin's a private person, and that's his business. And we just talked about how he's going to handle it and the medication that he takes, and he always was a professional about that. And because of that, it was never really an issue, and it was never really much of a topic of conversation. Again, I think one of the best things he does was take care of his body, and he did that there. Yeah, never really discussed it that way, but we'll kind of see as we move forward what he wants to do with it.
You're not surprised it got leaked, I'm guessing.
I don't know. I mean, Justin is a private guy, and I'm not sure that, he wants the world to know some of his private things, but I guess when, you're about to be one of the top quarterbacks taken in the draft, you're exposed to some different things, and I guess that's kind of the way it goes, but I'm sure it's not something he wanted to share with everybody.
All righty, Coach. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it today.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks.